Welcome to Show Me Sports Legacies. I'm your host, Jeff Crowley. I'm here with Kris Hockenfels, my co-host, again, and we're in the middle of summer. It's just a fun time to be a fan. I had my 4-screen setup yesterday to watch the Scottish Open, some Wimbledon tennis, and the Indiana Fever basketball team all at the same time, and I was flipping back and forth.
Yeah, there's a lot of great sports going on in the summer, and all you got to do is kind of search around to find the one that you like. We were in Kansas City yesterday. We wanted to watch a little of the Wimbledon, but we were downtown, so we went to the Power and Light, and there wasn't very many people there, but they did have the big screen at the Power and Light on with Wimbledon. It was kind of fun to watch it on a whatever size that is, 300-inch screen, and get to watch a little of that. We did watch a little baseball too, and so a lot of things going on, and a lot of fun in the summer. What some call the dog days of summer, these hot days in July. But if you're a sports fan, plenty to choose from.
You got the All-Star game this week. You got British Open coming up. There's just a lot of stuff that happens this time of year. Now, I want to follow up on an episode that we just did, which was a youth sports episode. And lest anyone think that we were overstating the business that is youth sports, there's a town in Indiana, Westfield, Indiana, that has a 400-acre complex, 26 fields. They have 5.5 million youth sports visitors each year. Outstrips Disney World. Amazing, in the middle of Indiana.
Yeah, the money's there. If you can find a way to build something that will get people there, the people will come, as they say in Field of Dreams. So we've gone from your small rural towns having a ball field or two to these mega complexes where everybody from, say, North Missouri or Northwest Missouri travels to. Kansas City's got a couple of them, mega parks, if you will, with 15 fields, 16 fields. Now they're, making them big enough, 30 fields. If you build them and there's teams to come, then
there's always
they'll
parents.
Get used, right? There's
always parents
that will
pulling out their wallets.
Advantage, right?
Well, and to give an idea of the pathway for some of these athletes, Kansas City Royals' first draft pick in yesterday's Major League Baseball draft was Sean Gamble, who comes from IMG Academy. He's a 17, 18-year-old. I'm not exactly sure. Supposedly a more athletic Ben Zobrist type Swiss Army knife kind of player. 14 years old, he was in Des Moines, Iowa. He moved, family moved, most likely, to give him that opportunity to be drafted first round of the Major League Baseball draft. So sometimes that works out. That investment is what the kid needs, and the kid has all the motivation and talent to make that happen. But that's a rare case.
And the Royals did extremely well in the draft. A couple of the draft boards have the Royals right at the top of teams that did well on the first day of the draft, even though the Royals didn't have a high pick like they usually do, which is a good thing because high picks mean the year before you didn't have a very good year. But mid-round picks, the Royals did very well, and hopefully that youth infusion will pay off for the Royals, because when you're a small market to medium market team in the MLB, you got to do well in the draft. It's a necessity. Sometimes if you're the Yankees, Red Sox, Mets, Dodgers, you don't have to do quite as well in the draft because you can pick up a lot of things you need from spending, free agent spending, trades, etc. But the Royals have to be good at the draft, and sounds like they did a pretty good job. And they've done a good job here recently too with guys like Carter Jensen, Bobby Witt Jr., Jack Caglione, Vinny Pasquantino. They've had some pretty good success in the draft.
Now, something else that you're known for is your travel to see baseball and other sports. And it's summer. You took a trip recently out to the West Coast. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was kind of the end of our Royals tour. We, every year, try to find some ways to see the Royals, whether it's minor league or professional. We have some couples that we travel with. This year, we hit Single A, Peoria, Illinois, and watched the Single A affiliate, actually High A, play there. We went to Springdale, Arkansas, and watched the Double A Royals affiliate play in Springdale. We went to Chicago and watched the Royals play the Chicago White Sox. And then we ended that with a trip to San Diego to see an interleague game between the Royals and the Padres. And that was a lot of fun. If you ever look at rankings for ballparks, maybe online or social media, Petco Park in San Diego always ranks really high. It's got a great reputation. It's a lot of fun. Of course, it's downtown and on the water, so the aura of the park and the energy of the park is there. They have frequent sellouts. They average about 35 or 40,000, at the park. So it was a really good time. If you want to be persuaded for the downtown ballpark idea, because that's kind of the news still with Kansas City, with the Royals, you should probably take a shot and go see one of these downtown parks and see what it's like in Pittsburgh, in Boston, in San Diego, where the experience includes the downtown. So A+ for San Diego for their ballpark. And the Royals got a win in one of the games we went to, so that was good too.
Now, the only difference between a downtown ballpark in Kansas City and San Diego is the weather.
Correct.
I mean, San Diego weather can't be beat.
It is unbelievable when you are going to plan a trip there and you look at the forecast for San Diego and you think, well, this is wrong because this is just the same thing copy and pasted for 7 days in a row, 70-degree high, 65-degree low, no humidity, no rain. That can't be right for 7 days in a row. Yeah, that's right. It's just beautiful every single day.
Now, I think we need to consider this. I think it's the Washington Park site that has the Western Auto sign near it. I just think we need that Western Auto sign lit up, and it needs to be like in the natural. When Jack Caglione hits a bomb like he did the other day, and it's going to blow out some lights.
Yeah, they could maybe incorporate that in part of the show, right? Someone hits a home run, and we could have that. I like that spot too because there's public transportation, and then there's Power and Light and Crossroads within walking distance. So that would be a good site. I've heard there's some momentum for the North Kansas City site up by Armour Road and I-29.
My travel experience was not as long a trip, and the weather was a little bit warmer. Recently went to a Kansas City Current game against Angel City, the LA team. It was a great experience, and I want to talk about it because it kind of feeds into what we're going to talk about in our podcast today, which is women's sports. Obviously, CPKC Stadium is unique. It's the first major stadium built for a women's professional soccer team. A lot of people here, once again, when they talk about downtown stadiums, they've driven past that stadium. The lights are always on. It seems like when you drive past down I-35 into the city. They built this thing as kind of stealthy. There wasn't a big bond issue, wasn't a lot of stuff. They just went in and built this thing. But they built an 11,500 seat stadium. I've been in it twice now. I went to the NWSL championship game last year with my daughter. It's quite a venue. It has a feel of a big thing, and yet it's very intimate. I was near the top of the stadium, but that meant I had a little shade once I made it up there, which was a trek. The view of the field just plays out that way with good vision lines and all that. So how do we get there? 7th and Baltimore shuttle. And then there's a new place that's just open called Two Birds and One Stone. And that's kind of the drop-off point for the shuttle. Get you pretty close to the stadium, about a 5-minute walk. Cold drinks, lots of food, and lots of people getting ready to head toward the stadium. You get into the stadium. There's food in the stadium as well. Joe's KC, got a Z-Man. The game starts. The game goes along, and it's kind of slow, 0-0. Not a lot happening.
0-0.
0-0. Excuse me. 0-0. Well, thank you for correcting me on that. That was a major error. All of a sudden, there's something that happens sometimes in soccer, happens sometimes in the NBA, kind of a flop. And there's a penalty kick for Angel City. And that penalty kick is a laser into the left side of the goal. And somehow the goalkeeper for Kansas City, Lorena, and I love that. She's from Brazil. When you're from Brazil and you're good at soccer, you just need one name.
One name does it, right?
One name does it. And Lorena made a fully extended kind of that Bobby Witt catch we saw a few weeks ago, just completely extended. She did the same thing, hit it with her hand, didn't punch it, had to reach with her hand and her fingers, but somehow got enough backspin on that thing that it hit on the crossbar and rolled up top on the netting above the crossbar. And this is kind of what it sounded like just a few seconds after that happened. Gets loud. 11,500 people can make some noise. And that was pretty exciting because it looked like we'd be down 1-0. And there was a particular player that stood out to me, Hemwa Chawinga. Chawinga was all over the
Golden
field.
Boot, I think, last year for the NWSL, which means you scored the most goals in the league. Yeah, she is quite a player.
The one goal we got was on a second chance after she made the play all herself and broke down the defense, and then the ball kicked out and somebody finished it off. A lot of Chawinga jerseys around the stadium. I can see why. So it's a pretty amazing story, but it's also an economic story, and it's also kind of a model that is being used to extend women's sports throughout not only soccer, but other other sports.
And it is a gorgeous ballpark, but it's also a gorgeous area. And that's by the hard work of the Long family, who had a vision for a women's team and made it happen. Like we talked about before, if you build it, they will come. They built the stadium. And then just recently they announced and had a ribbon cutting for like a $2 billion economic development around the stadium. And now the transportation, the KC streetcar, is going to go all the way down there from River Market, be opened by the World Cup in 26. So you have all those things together, but it takes somebody to have the vision. And that ballpark is exactly what it's supposed to be. So everything that was put into that was with the vision of a women's soccer club, the sightlines to the pitch. I think they had a rule that every seat had to be so many feet from the edge of the pitch. Concourses are big and wide and open. The view opens up to the bridge and the river. As a matter of fact, they have a fun thing going on that if it gets overkicked in the one end, will it make it to the river or not? And it's happened a couple times where the ball will be floating in the river if it makes it past the goal and the scoreboard, and then it can actually go into the river. So a lot of thought put into it, a lot of fun. I hope the momentum stays. And I think that family has actually had some ties into bringing a WNBA team to Kansas City. If you saw the WNBA announce they were going to, within the next 5 or 6 years, add 2 or 3 teams, Kansas City didn't make that list, but the owners of the Current said, we're going to do everything we can to help make that happen and keep the momentum going in Kansas City, because we know that they have a fever for women's sports, and we can translate that. If we can do it in soccer or football, we can do it for the WNBA too.
Well, Brittany Mahomes and her husband have a little bit to do with that as well. You know, we talk about the Kansas City Current and their strong ownership and their leadership. NCMC's decided to step up and lead the way in the state of Missouri with junior college women's flag football.
Yeah, with any pro sport, there's always going to be a trickle-down effect, and you got to use the momentum from that. Now with women's sports, the last 5 years has really brought on some momentum to do some of these programs with the basketball and the Caitlin Clark WNBA exposure, the exposure for the women's soccer. There's enough momentum there now to create opportunities for lower levels, and NCMC has jumped right in to the pool, even really to the deep end, and said, let's start something, and we can be in on this momentum. And that happens to be women's flag football, which is a growing sport, which is very entertaining, a lot of fun. And I think they're going to do a lot to help this community kind of get on board and be fans. And so it should be a fun journey to watch.
It's not crazy to think that someday there'll be an NCMC athlete in the Olympics playing flag football, because 2028 will have flag football.
Yeah, and so, that may seem like a long ways away, but it's really not. 3 years and you've got time to build. If it really catches on, then it'll stay an Olympic sport. More momentum will be out there. Kudos to NCMC for taking a shot at this, starting a program, and seeing where it'll go.
We'll be back in just a moment and talk with the principals, Nate Gamet, athletic director, Aulden Knight II, the first head coach of women's flag football at NCMC. We've got a couple guys joining us in the studio today. We've got Nate Gamet, athletic director at North Central Missouri College, and Aulden Knight II, who is the new head flag football coach and a faculty member at NCMC. And he's been here a few months, and he's launching this thing from scratch. So we talked about women's sports leading into this, and we talked about flag football a little bit, but here's just some numbers that I want you to kind of jump on, Nate. Since 2019, flag football has grown in participation by 69%, with 500,000 girls involved in competitions from age 6 to 17. 14 states now host flag football championships, and it's been approved for inclusion in the 2028 Olympics. And then Kansas seems to be in the lead a little bit of Missouri, and you guys are going to talk about what you're doing to take the lead in Missouri, but Kansas has 6 NAIA colleges, including the only national champion 5 straight years, Ottawa University. Ottawa, Kansas. Missouri now has 1 NAIA school, Cotty College, and we got Graceland up in the southern part of Iowa doing this on the NAIA side, and you guys are blazing the trail for junior college. NJCAA has thrown some weight behind this, and we're going to do this. So, Nate, how did this start? I mean, whose idea was this? Who was watching this movement? Talk us through that.
So about a year and a half ago, I went, when we had our convention meetings, I kind of pick one that we're not really involved in because we're always trying to expand and grow. And I was like, what's something that might catch on here or might be something good that we could get? And so I was going to some different, I've been to tennis, I've been to wrestling, I've been to a few different meetings just to kind of see what might be a fit. And so I was like, I'm going to go try this flag football thing out. And I just went and we're listening to the people and, you know, as an up and coming sport. And then all those numbers that you just kind of rattled through with it being the Olympics. And then I know like the North Kansas City high school areas like Staley and some of them are starting to bring it on. And I was like, man, I think that's something that could catch on. I mean, football's big in the state. And I was like, if we're going to do something, why not be the first at it? And so that's when I started talking with Dr. K. I mean, sometimes I take him some crazy ideas and I'm like, I know it's not a sport in the state. You know, it's not a lot, you know, it's many eyes, but I think we can do this. We put a little game plan together and we're able to get it kicked off.
So NJCAA gave some seed money or there was some grant money?
Yep. So there's a grant. When they know that you're going to do it, there's a grant that you can apply for. And we were fortunate enough to receive that grant. Gives you some seed money to get things started and put it towards the program for uniforms, you know, basically anything that's going to help propel the program and make it work can be used for. And so we've been using it, trying to use it to get things off on the right foot. And we're excited. We're the first one in the state of Missouri. Hopefully there's a few more that join here in the next few years. But for right now, it's us. And as long as it keeps growing in the state, high school wise, I think we'll be able to get really good enrollment out of it.
I know you guys just didn't want a participation trophy in this. I know you're pretty competitive and you've got sports that compete at district, regional, and national levels in basketball and most recently in baseball this spring. I assume this thing really appealed to your desire to compete.
Yeah. I mean, when you're first starting a program, and I've told, you know, Aulden this several times, and the best thing about him is like I'm having to like always reel him in a little bit. And I'd much rather have that than to try to have to push and make him want to. I mean, he's talking about winning championships right out the gate, and I love it. But I'm like, you know, we're not going to be able to just, it's okay if that's not where we're at. I would love if we were, but that's what we want. We think that being the first, we can draw a lot of attention. We can draw a lot of attention to the sport, even in our area with some of the smaller high schools, and finding kids that are just really good athletes. Maybe they're not great at one individual sport to go play, you know, college softball, college basketball, college whatnot, but flag football is so new and so raw for so many young ladies that if you're an athlete, putting trust in coach that he can take an athlete and kind of develop them what he needs to play a certain position. So it kind of going to cross the board of a couple different sports, and we'll see what we can get out of it.
What kind of pool of candidates? I mean, you chose Aulden from a pool of candidates. What kind of reaction did you get when you put out the word that you were going to break ground in Missouri?
We had a wide array of applicants that had zero to do with any type of athletics, just business people. We had soccer coaches. We had softball coaches. We had across the board just a variety of different applicants. And so sifting through to kind of narrow down the pool to what we wanted or what we needed was a little easier because, you know, some of them like just didn't really fit what we needed, but we got down to a couple that were really good. And it was just trying to find what we thought would be the right fit, the right energy, the right person to take it from scratch. Cause I need to go get her somebody that's going to like, hey, there's no game plan. Like there's going to be ups, downs. Like we're going to have to figure this. I mean, this is going to be extremely fluid year one, maybe year two, until we get it hammered out with, this is how we need to do it. I mean, we have a kind of a game plan with the other sports, so it's not going to be too crazy, but it's not just going to be, this is how we do it and we run with it. I just needed somebody that could handle that, but somebody that's ready to go with it.
Coach Knight, I just did a small dive into your athletic background, and it's pretty impressive. 1,646 rushing yards at Copley High School as a senior in the Akron, Ohio area. That's a big football area. You're named to several all-star teams, Akron Beacon Journal, Cleveland Plain Dealer, Ohio All-State honors in your division. Then you went to Hampton University, and as a redshirt freshman, you switched to wide receiver and averaged over about 25 yards a catch, which is a big number. And then transferred over to University of Cincinnati and continued with punt returning, little cornerback, I think.
Yes.
The first thing that hits me is that you ought to know what an athlete looks like because you clearly bring that athleticism. And secondly, you've been a running back. You've been a wide receiver. You've been a cornerback. Talk about your background and what you loved about playing football, and then what you've done with that since you got out of college, and what your passion is with education, and then what brought you to this job.
Okay, perfect. Well, football was always number one in my heart. I've played multiple sports my whole life. Football, basketball, boxing, wrestling, track, you name it, I've done it. Baseball, all throughout my life. Football just grew on to me the most, and that's where I had the most passion because, believe it or not, I love physicality. I love the contact of it, the danger of it. It gave me adrenaline. So I just took that, really ran with it in high school. I had to transfer from down in Atlanta, Georgia, up to Ohio, and finished off at Copley High School. But after that, went through a few things that, kind of set me back a little bit going into college. I had to go to a postgraduate school, but I think it was for the best because that helped me really take advantage of education, take it a lot more serious. Once I got to Hampton University, did what I did there, went to Cincinnati, played well. I ended up having some injuries that cut my career somewhat short there as well. But after Cincinnati, I got a chance to play a little bit of professional for a little bit. After I finished that, I also was coaching and things like that. Aside from coaching, I also, worked as an assistant to an athletic director. I've done that at the college level. I've coached college football at Limestone University. I've also coached flag football out in the Atlanta, Georgia area, a co-ed league out there. So that was a great experience as well. So from the athletic standpoint, I check all the boxes most definitely. I know what it takes. And I think that's something that I like to, just to give a little insight, how I like to recruit athletes. I think that's the number one thing. It's very easy to transition anyone, any position. If you're a natural athlete, that's the easiest thing to do, transition. You can play anywhere. The more positions you can play, the more versatile you are, the more important and, valuable you can be to a team. So I think that's great recruiting all type of athletes, aside from, of course, a quarterback as well, true quarterbacks who can come in and, be that leader that you need, be the backbone of the team that you need. So, that was big with me when it comes to recruiting. I know Nate mentioned, year one, I let it be known a lot. I believe we will have the most talented team out here. I've went and recruited a lot of the top athletes around the country, a few from the state of Missouri that will be representing us as well, but I've acquired a lot of girls from all over, Florida, California, New Jersey, Ohio, Atlanta, all over. So we'll have a very talented team. The best part about it is once they all get here, having them all, learn the culture, what I expect of them, carry themselves correctly. I think that's very important as well. Good character, young ladies. Because I'm not just watching, but everyone's watching. Once you get here, everyone knows who you are. I preach that to them. Carry yourselves accordingly. But as far as the teaching aspect, I did receive 2 master's degrees. So when it comes to education, I take that very seriously. That's something I preach to the ladies as well. Education is number one, because at the end of the day, we all want to play football forever. But in reality, we won't. At some point it has to come to an end, and I want you to be set up for your future. So having that education, it really goes a long way to have on your resume, to get that experience. You never know who you may meet, who you may come across. A lot of people say it's who you know, but sometimes it can be what you have, accomplished over the years as well. So I'm very big on that. I look forward to it. I'm excited about the season. Can't wait to get these girls out here.
Seems like you playing in different parts of the country and the networks you've probably created would help you in that. And the other thing is, the Ottawa story is not about some bright, shining beacon of a campus and a big university in a big town.
No.
It's a small town. And they had to recruit and sell people on the concept and on the sport. And it seems like the sport sort of sells itself.
Right.
That people understand what you're trying to do and they can come here and accomplish their goals. They're less concerned about how many thousands of people live in the town.
Right.
You had kind of asked, why Aulden? Well, he kind of went through the little bit of a resume, the athleticism, the football, Cincinnati, coach college, double master. It kind of checked itself. The more I got to know him, the more we got to talk, and kind of his vision and what he wanted and what he expected, and type of young ladies he was going to recruit and what he expected of them. Trenton's not, sometimes hard to find on a map when you're Atlanta. When he first got here, we were talking about, hey, we tell distance in miles and not minutes. We say, hey, how far is it to Chillicothe? Oh, 20 miles. We'll translate 20 minutes. 20 miles in Atlanta, where he's from, that might be 4 hours later. So we're trying to teach him a little bit as we go. But yeah, you can see he pretty easily started checking all those boxes of what we were looking for and what we were wanting.
Yeah, sometimes the passion, too, doesn't have to come from the large urban areas. Northwest Missouri is known to have its passion for sports and the small towns and the communities that really rally behind the basketball or the football teams. And, the crowds that line up on Friday night in Missouri for football every Friday at 7 o'clock, those translate or will translate to what you're doing at NCMC, because the area has tradition and legacy of supporting athletes, supporting programs. We get to take a taste of a new one, and it's really, really exciting.
Seems like there's less terminology that you have to go through. I saw a TV spot about lacrosse. Lacrosse was the next big thing. I go, that's going to take a little education of people, but flag football translates pretty quick. People understand football. They see the ball going up in the air. They see people making athletic plays. They see people spiking the ball in an end zone. They've seen that before. Mm-hmm. It's not a hard sell.
I'm looking forward to spring. We've got some big plans. We're still working on details on kind of how we're going to do it, but I would love our first game, home game, to be like an event. Like not just, we're having flag football, like an event where people know people in the community, where there's going to be tons of questions about it. So we're trying to get something scheduled where it's an event where people can come out and obviously try to have, a couple hundred people out there, tailgate, like just try to get people involved and intrigued about it. I think there's a bunch of young ladies around here that once they see it, they'll be like, I can do that, or I want to do that.
Will the season mirror a traditional football season in the fall for this? Or is it, when you said spring, is that like a spring practice, or is this season during the spring as opposed to in the fall?
It's a spring championship season.
Okay, gotcha.
Fall, they can have up to 4 scrimmages, I believe, in the fall. And then, but the main bulk of their season is the spring, which works out because we'll be playing at CF Russell. So that way we
perfect, right.
We don't have to, touch Friday night lights and here in Trenton. I mean, because the field is different. I'll let Aulden get into all those details. I'm still trying to figure some of that out. But field is different, and the lines would have to be different, and we're not going to mark up, obviously, the high school field, whatever. But in the spring, then we can, paint it to what we need, and then let Coach and the ladies go do what they do and bring in the fans.
Should be great, because I always get worried about, as being an AD from high school, when you have new programs and you mention, it's going to be the same season as this sport. You think, oh boy, we don't want to compete against ourselves, right? We already have something going. So the fact that that's not going to mirror football season, but be opposite of it in the seasons, is really going to work out well.
And that's one of the things we looked at whenever we were trying to decide what to bring, because the town does so well supporting high school and college. We're not trying to create some sort of interference.
Right.
We want, one football season's done. Well, now spring, we can roll over into another and get those same people that are excited about football, in the fall, let them be excited about it again in the spring.
Yeah.
What other colleges, who are we going to be able to compete against schedule-wise, or who do you think's going to follow in your lead and your drag pretty quickly, where you don't have to travel great distances to find games?
So the good thing for right now, with it being so new and emerging, as I call it, with the NJCAA, is we can play anybody. So all the NEI schools, we can play. If Mizzou has a club team, we can go down there and play. Cody, obviously, we can play. We don't have to just play junior colleges. I think Pratt, Heston, they're now going NEI, but they have one. Pratt has one. Fort Scott had one. It might be, they may not, I can't remember if they still do, but they had one. So we can play those schools, but we can also play all the NEIs. And then what they do at the end of the year, they just get everybody together, rank them the best they can, or seed them the best that they can. And then everybody, all the ones that are in NJCAA, meet, get seeded out, and then go have their national tournament. So we're not going to have to travel all the way to the East Coast to play games and try to get them in that way. We can get in the ones that are somewhat local.
It seems like the NAIA is going to a selection process. They've got enough teams now. Mm-hmm. They don't all get to go to the national tournament, and that just raises the level a little bit and makes it seem a little bit more like we're used to seeing with NJCAA selection day, looking at what's happening and where they get seated. How does that sound to you? I wouldn't think you'd want to take Ottawa on in game 1, but you're going to be stepping up and not afraid to take on a lot of these NAIA teams.
Well, I personally think that like I stated earlier, I know that we'll be the most talented team, so I'm not afraid of Ottawa anyone, so whoever is willing to play, we will play. That's all I can say about that.
And that's the way you grow. I mean, you got to bump up against whatever your ceiling is at that moment so you can bust through it and move on from there. So I think that's exciting for fans too. It's not like, well, we want to have a good record and we want to look good out on the field. So we're taking on the Sisters of the Poor, kind of thing, just to see some of those teams show up here and what they've got and measure yourself against that's going to be exciting, I would think, for the fans.
Right.
Nate, you need to break away?
I have to break away. Unfortunately, we're doing some renovations to the Ketchum, and we're getting new weight room in, and Aulden's going to be able to touch a little bit on that. He's going to help us out on the athletic side and getting some programs with his background and all that he's been in. But we've got new flooring going down, and I need to just make sure that it's getting in the way they need it in.
Sounds like an important AD job, so we don't want to keep you from that.
I appreciate it, guys.
Okay, we'll carry on with Aulden here.
Good to see you, Nate.
You too, as always.
Talk about two things. You got the indoor facility, which I assume is going to be at least in play for you guys for training and what that can do for you, and then what the new enhancements are for the Ketchum Center that might help develop your team.
That's a great topic to get into because the indoor facility, yes, we will utilize. I think that's great that we are able to utilize it and work things out, with the other teams as well. That's perfect for us. The environment, the amount of space in there, and just indoor, sometimes with the weather here, that could be very helpful for us. So we will utilize that. As far as the weight room and all the new equipment and everything that's going in, I think that's very important. That's something that we spoke about. With my background, there were things that they asked, what do I need? What do I want? Something like that was very important. That was one of the top things on my list because, I'm big on development. I want to develop the young ladies, and not just them, but other sports as well. I actually help out as a strength and conditioning coordinator, helping out put together workouts for, each team, breaking down body fat or, what they should or should not eat, nutrition, focusing in on what they want to specifically train for, what they want to see growth in, whether it's, endurance, speed, explosion, things like that. So, having that equipment, that's very important. Trust me. And we develop great athletes like that.
Give us that definition of health informatics, which is one of your degrees. What that is, it kind of ties into what you were just talking about, I think.
So one of my masters was in communications, and I actually teach communications at the college, so that's perfect. Health informatics, that's one of my second master's degrees, and that actually falls into play of what I'm actually doing. It falls into play with nutrition, understanding the body, the health side of it. Informatics, that actually falls into more as well as like data, IT, data, breaking down things. So when it comes to implementing that into like workouts, having a true understanding of what their body specifically needs, I can do that and, implement numbers into it. It really works out. I think this was the perfect role for me.
I think that's helpful because as a parent, I had a girl that threw discus and almost blew out her elbow throwing javelin.
Right.
And so you've had injuries. A lot of people that we've talked to on the podcast had to fight through injuries, and some of those shortened their career or at least interrupted their career at some point.
Correct.
Keeping athletes fine-tuned with the right kind of rest and hydration and stretching and flexibility and strength so that they don't come up against injuries that can be avoided. My ears perk up as a parent. You know, if I had a kid that I was sending your way, your degree and some of that background would appeal to me.
Right. And it really matters, from a parent's aspect, because first and foremost, you want to feel comfortable with where your child is going, who they'll be around. And like you say, the knowledge behind it. That's very important. So preventing injury, that's something that we speak over as well. I sit down and meet with all the coaches, injury prevention. What are some of the injuries that they typically come across? And I figure out ways where we can avoid that. For instance, I don't know if you guys, well, I'm sure you do podcasting, so you watch the NBA, you see a lot of Achilles injuries. We figure out ways to prevent that from happening. Specific exercises, like you say, flexibility, things like that. We do yoga. We'll be doing yoga this year, everything. So all of that goes into play. Very important. So I can't wait to get it started.
NBA, I never used to hear calf injuries tied to Achilles.
No.
But that's what you hear anymore. Somebody has a calf injury and all of a sudden they're at risk.
Right.
For the Achilles injury. And that obviously just happened with Halliburton's injury.
Exactly. Strong calves make a difference. Trust me. It all connects.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I am the typical Friday night football fan or NFL Sunday football fan, and all I do is watch, that style of football, give me the Cliff Notes version of how the women's flag football is different. What do I have to look for when I'm just used to watching the normal American guys 11-on-11 football?
Right. Well, the simplest way I can say it, if you're used to watching American 11-on-11 football, just take the 5 linemen away. or, 4 or 5 linemen away. Instead of playing 11, we play 7, so take 4 linemen away. There is still a snapper, so a center technically, but the center is eligible to go out as a receiver as well once they snap it. So it's really just 7-on-7 football, but the center is able to snap the ball and go out for reception as well. It's a fast-paced game. I can say that. There's still on the defensive side, there are rushers as well, so you're used to seeing like edge rushers or defensive ends, so it's a very fast-paced game, especially from the high school to the college level. I think that's probably the biggest adjustment is the tempo, the pace that you play at, the speed of everything. Those are things that we will be going over, so the ladies are accustomed to it. The dimensions, I believe, are 80 yards, 40 wide, if I'm not mistaken, so it's pretty close to, 100-yard fields, you know what I mean? It's still a lot of space. 5v5 is different. I know in high school some play 5v5s and things like that. Those are a little shorter, but 7v7, what we play in college, 80 yards long and I believe 40 yards wide, if I'm not mistaken.
You're not going to have a drive that is 6 first downs.
No.
The rules are not set up that way. Talk about that.
No. So the rules are not set up that way, 6 first downs and things like that. From my knowledge, I know that I believe you get 4 plays to get half field and then you get 4 plays to get to the end zone. So it's split in halves from my knowledge, yes.
And you have different kind of extra point options.
Yes,
based
there are
on
different
the yardage.
Yes, based upon the yardage, 1-point conversion, 2-point conversion, 3, things like that. So there's different type of conversions. And
as I was reading, and this is just not Cliff Notes, it's worse than that, probably Wikipedia or something. But they were talking about that all forward passes have to clear the line of scrimmage.
Correct. Now,
so it's a forward. Your foot is going forward.
Right. No swing passes out, to a running back. You coming out. These are
pitches. You can do backward.
Now
passes.
That's something interesting because yes, you can backwards pass and throw it forward. As long as it's a backwards pass, you can still throw it forward and things like that. So there's a lot of creativity into it. If you can dial up the right plays, you can honestly draw some good trick plays up if you want to call it that, or just scheme things the right way.
Now, here's why I think Patrick Mahomes loves flag football and talks about it a lot, because quarterbacks can catch the ball after they pitch it to somebody. They can go out on the route. And we know Patrick wants to do that. And that all the Chiefs fans would be holding their breath if that was allowed to happen. Yeah.
All quarterbacks want to be involved with that. They think they're the best receivers as well. Trust
Everybody wants to play a position that they don't actually play. I mean, the big guys always want to go out and shoot threes.
Right.
All that kind of stuff. So it makes sense to me. So talk about officiating, and we did a program about recruiting officials, and there's a guy called the Young Ref on TikTok. I don't know if you've seen him, but he's a Misha official, and he's kind of viral.
I have not.
And he is very good. Jeremy Barnes is his name.
I'll have to check him out.
Look him up in the Kansas City area. And I have seen him only recently posting flag football refereeing opportunities. So his purpose was to recruit young referees in because of the aging of referees. You put them on an 80-yard field with all that action, they're going to have to keep up. It would seem like this would potentially grow the pool so that you'd have more women referees involved in this sport compared to what you might see in high school football.
Right. And I think that would be interesting. I think that should be something that they look into, because, with it being a lot of women playing, I think there would be something for the women referees to get into. That would be good for them as well. Now,
it's not a contact sport, but
correct.
There are some risks. Talk about what you see in the sport.
Well, it is not a contact sport, and, for any contact, you can be flagged for it, penalized. But when going for the ball, 2 people are going for the ball, and they just collide, like going for the ball, that's typical to happen, and that does happen often. You won't be penalized for that if they're both going for the ball. But now if it's an intentional play where you give contact to someone and things like that, that's where you'll be penalized. But a lot of people wear different types of headgear. I know that we'll be wearing headgear and things like that this year. They do have like small padded helmet. They have like small padded headband wise. We're going to have all of that for them as well, just to make sure that they are safe, because something that I teach my girls is to attack the ball in the air. I don't want you pulling away, shying away from contact. It's not a contact sport, but if you go up and get the ball and it does happen, I don't want you to shy away from it. Attacking the ball in the air is very important. I'll make sure they have the equipment that they need and things like that. We will make sure that they have the equipment that they need. It's typical to see it happen at times, but not too often, but it does happen. And sometimes even when pulling flags and things like that, sometimes people go low and you may see someone get flipped over or get chopped in the knees or a little bit, something like that every so often.
So remind me from my playground days. So the flags are like a belt.
Yes.
Still with 2 flags, 1 on each hip?
Yes.
But all you've got to do is grab one of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Some of the video I've seen, I mean, the lateral mobility of some of these people is amazing. I can understand why you're going to whiff. I mean, it seems like that flag is right there to get, and somebody gives you a little hip shake.
A little sidestep or a little hezzy, right? Yeah.
It's very interesting. You'd be surprised at what these ladies can do. You know, like the movement, the hip mobility, that's very important. Like they drop low to the ground, and there's a lot of different movements that you can do. I don't want to give too much out, trust me, but there's a lot of different movements that you can do to get away and things like that, and it makes it very difficult, you know, to grab the flag. I think it'll be very interesting for a lot of people to see this upcoming season.
It just is a visually interesting sport. I mean, it has a lot of the stuff that, you know, when you go out to 7-on-7s and the Chiefs or whatever,
right?
You know, everybody says, "Oh, somebody's caught 2 touchdowns a day, 3 touchdowns a day." You know,
right.
It's hard to cover people in open space.
It is. And that's one of the hardest, you know, things about it because it's a non-contact sport. So in football with pads, you know, you can get a lot of hands on people. It's different in flag. So covering in space, you have to really be technically sound. So I think it'll be fun and exciting.
This may be a little too soon, but our listeners listen to this. How do they get involved? Is it right now, are you tapped into the booster club and that kind of will carry over to some things? Will there be some fundraising that we'll see? We
do have a lot of things set up, whether it's sponsorships, partnerships with companies and things like that. Fundraising, we will do a lot of fundraising around the community as well as outreach a little further if we need to as well. But, you know, we do have I believe it's called the club account, the Flag Football Club account where, you know, we accept donations and where it goes towards the program. With it being a first-year program, that's the most expensive year, in my opinion, getting everything kicked off. From equipment, you know, from traveling. If they have to eat on the road, we have to stay in hotels. Some places, you know, we will play nearby, but we will also travel places as well because there's not enough teams right by us. So we have to travel further distances as well. So having the support, I think, is very important, you know, with the boosters. And we'll do a lot of things around the community as well and give back however we can, you know, whether it's helping them out with events or sponsorship, putting up banners or even on uniforms. Maybe we can, you know, someone sponsors, maybe we can put their logo on our uniform, whatever it may be, you know, just different things. So with it being the first year, I think that's very important to have the support behind us.
And you currently have girls signed up, right? I mean, you have a crew already or mostly a crew or a full squad, or tell me how that is the first year.
Yes. So you get 15 LOIs, 15 scholarships to give out, and I have 15 already signed. We're already set. Now, there will be additional young ladies who attend the college and will be coming out to play as well. I think that's very good. The first year sport, we're welcoming everybody. You know, everyone's welcome. But I took a lot of time, you know, and recruited some of the top athletes. I put a lot of time into it. And that's why, you know, I'm so confident stating that we're going to win it year one. And I don't like to speak on it much, but when I'm asked, I just mention it because, you know, a lot of the girls I recruit are All-Americans and, you know, people who played, you know, with the USA team, things like that, whatever it may be. You know, I have a lot of great athletes.
And they just want a chance to prove it, right? And they just want a chance. And that's the opportunity that NCMC and you're creating, which also makes it very exciting for the fans.
I made a comment earlier with the Olympic inclusion of the sport. Might be the first Olympian to come through the NCMC program.
Right.
That's not that far-fetched, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, believe it or not, first off, that's 28, the Olympics in 28, so that's sooner than we can expect, you know, it's sooner than we think. And then, you know, with flag just growing tremendously, these girls come in and do what they do. Even like some of the girls who may not have been just the biggest names out there technically. Maybe they didn't have the exposure at their high schools that other people had, but they're great athletes. And I found those young ladies. And, you know, even people who may not have played flag who were multi-sport athletes and great athletes in other sports, we'll have them as well, you know. So I wouldn't put it past any of them because, you know, we have some great girls coming through, and I think it'll be very exciting to see. Some girls will truly stand out, and you'll see very soon.
And there's these high-level programs like Ottawa
Correct.
that have people with professional coaching experience.
Correct.
So they're getting coaches like yourself,
Correct.
people like that, and you're feeding people in through that system. And then it's not many years from now, the NCAA Division I schools might be the landing spot. So you'll see a pathway through NCMC to universities that are even more well-known by name than Ottawa and other NAIA schools.
Exactly. And I'm glad you touched on that point because it'll be here sooner than we know. You know, they're already getting involved in it. And once NCAA gets into it, Some of these bigger schools that already have club teams, once they become sanctioned, those will be places that you want to go, and, for people to get that opportunity, typically, athletes out of high school, they typically go to community colleges to get to those bigger schools if they don't go directly out of high school. So this will be a perfect route for them to go to get there, helping eligibility wise and things like that too as well. So there's a lot of perks to it.
We talked about girls wrestling in high school programs and how the Big Ten is now stepping forward,
right.
And that's going to change the whole dynamic of it.
It does.
When the Big Ten or the SEC is doing something, people pay attention to it.
Right. And those schools and those conferences already have, like you said, the club teams, the intramural teams, they already have those there. All they've got to do is see the success that these NAIA or NJCAA schools have, and then they'll take that leap, and then that'll change everything just like it did with wrestling.
It will. And, like I said, once they have it in the NCAA, like some of the FCS schools, I believe, started now, if I'm not mistaken. And once the FBS schools get in, it'll change.
Yeah.
It'll change drastically. So I'm excited for it myself as well. I think it'll help the sport out.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap this up, I noticed on your LinkedIn profile, you talked about a passion to make a difference in the world.
Correct.
How does that mesh with this? It seems like it fits together, but tell me in your elevator speech what drew you here and what you think is going to happen here that you're going to make that difference.
Well, what drew me here first and foremost is whenever I spoke with, Nate and the whole committee from back when I was interviewing, the first feeling that I received was family, and I truly mean it. You don't necessarily receive that from a lot of places. You really feel like it's just a job interview. I didn't feel that with them. I was myself. I was open with them. They were open with me. And, we just connected. Like, we spoke about the job and things like that, but we also spoke personally. And, I think that's very important to be able to open up to someone. It just allows you to feel like you're at home, so that's what truly drew me here, the family environment. Everyone around the community was very accepting. Anything I needed, they were welcoming. Me moving in out here, people offered, can we help you move in? Can we help you find furniture? Just anything, so I'm like, that's a true blessing. When it comes to making a difference and things like that, that's what I'm in it for. I let the young ladies know it's not about me at all. I've had my time, this has nothing to do with me. What God has for me, what God has for you, everything is already set in stone. And I'm a firm believer in that. It's not about me, it's about you. So whatever I can do for you to help you succeed, that's what I'm going to do. These young ladies come from all different types of backgrounds, all different types of living situations. And for me to have that platform, for me to have that voice, for me to have that image, for me to have the connections that I've built over the years, college, professional, coaching, college, all these different connections that I have, to be able to, help these people succeed, help them get to where they want to be, help some of these young ladies be first-generation college students and their families. Like, that's the biggest difference to me. We actually had a meeting yesterday, a Zoom meeting, and one of the things that I told them was the best part about this was, from the moment I met you to the time when it's time for you to leave here, seeing that growth, seeing the young woman that you've become, that makes me happy. And I think that's very important. I want to see them all succeed. And just speaking on, I know I touch bases on, some of like the top coaches. I've played under some of the top coaches. Luke Fickell was my head coach. I played Marcus Freeman. He's the head coach at Notre Dame. Mike Fury, I coached alongside him at Limestone. He's a receivers coach and coordinator at South Carolina. Mike Garner played at the Miami Dolphins. Jericho Cotchery, receiver for Steelers. And all these people were on the staff that I coached alongside, and we still have connections to this day. So, I've learned so many different things, and I didn't name everyone. Coach Stab, and, he was coach at Michigan. I can go on, all these people I've learned so many great things from, that I'm implementing into my coaching style. So just to wrap it up, that's why I'm so confident in, the talent that we have, but also the coaching, the culture that we have that I'm going to establish here, and starting something from ground up. That's what I wanted to do, have that head coaching job.
It always seems like it's about that family and that mentoring. I'm a big fan of Dennis Gate at the University of Missouri, and
Right.
He talks about, I'm not just going to be your coach, I'm going to go to your wedding.
Right.
I'm going to see the kind of young man you become.
Right.
And your family, and we'll be connected the rest of our lives. And,
Right.
and I love hearing that.
Last thing I'll say with that, what truly made a difference with me recruiting too, I truly take it serious. I go see every recruit. I don't just recruit them over social media, over the phone. I meet them in person. I meet their families. Things like that goes a long way. And I've done that with every girl that we have coming in this year.
How many stories have you read where it's the handwritten note, it's the personal phone call, it's the little personal connection that's made between the coach and the player instead of the token email or social media posts? We've had multiple athletes on that have expressed that their coach did this for them, so I'm going to pass that on.
Right.
And to hear you say that, when we always seem to, in this podcast, get around that circle and back to the legacy of passing on those great things about sports to the next generation. So here we are again. Good stuff.
Really good stuff. Coach Knight, thank you for coming in. Want to wish you all the success in the world. Love introducing you to a few folks on the podcast and get the word out. I mean, you've been on the ground running for months now. I mean, it's not like they hired you and you're starting the first day of the fall semester and planning to have a team out there. So I can see the machine is moving. It'll be exciting to see.
Most definitely. Thank you for having me. I truly appreciate it. It's a blessing to be here. Yes, I've been very active. I've been getting things together, and I'm excited for it.
Okay, well, that's a lot to take in. You know, a brand new sport. It's going to happen in the spring. There's a lot of steps before we get to that point. But, man, if I was a young lady with some athletic talent and loved football, I'd want to get out there on that field. And Aulden seems like the kind of guy that I'd want to play for.
And we all know the importance of just being involved, being active, being a part of a team, being a part of community, and being able to represent the college, put the uniform on. And so to give more opportunity is never a bad thing. And as we know, in this town, in this area, CF Russell's hosted a lot of events out there on those grounds at Eastside Park. And looks like this spring we get to add women's college flag football to that list. So should be fun, exciting, and really looking forward to getting out to a game.
We're very lucky in this area with all the things that the Chiefs have accomplished, the things the Royals have accomplished, the Current is accomplishing, Sporting KC, and all that stuff trickles down to us. I mean, we're only 90 miles away from that stuff, you know, and people pay attention and they buy the jerseys and they dream about getting out on the field and doing those things that they see other athletes do. It's a very motivating thing for a young girl in this case to get involved in women's sports, and flag football just seems like the hot item.
Yep, and should continue with the momentum of the Olympics and some small colleges adding it too. I'm sure we'll see some bigger universities start to add those. And by the time 2028 rolls around, it could be one of those emerging sports that gets lots of national attention. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the whole thing evolves. And it looks like NCMC has some good leaders right at the top to get it going.
Yep. Well, we thank Coach Aulden Knight and we thank Nate Gamet, Athletic Director at NCMC, for filling us in and having a fun conversation about women's sports. And we want to thank our listeners for Show Me Sports Legacies.